So, I believe yesterday they came out with a news article saying that there was a strange odor at Home Depot in Morgan Hill. Remember, this is not in any of these other cities. It's in the city that I've claimed that they've been fuming me for quite some time, fuming me mostly in my car, in my home, and sometimes in public. Okay? Quite often, rather. So, that is pretty key in this, as well as the 15 witnesses I have put on record in the past. So now this person has been staying with me for about 2 weeks in this area. 2 weeks, is that correct?
That's right, yes.
And I want her to go over some of the things that she's noticed that are similar to the things that I've been complaining about as being part of the PSYOP. So you have the floor.
So basically, I made a couple of calls. The first call I made, I had a buzzing in my ear. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Then I made another phone call and I experienced the same thing, which is similar to what Chuku talks about with his ears. In terms of the vision, also, I've had problems with that. There does seem to be some sort of chemical in this area in particular. And since I've been around Chuku, I've noticed the license plates he talks about. It's almost like they're referencing subtle hints and suggesting things to him to perhaps provoke him. Initially I didn't think it was true, but then I started taking pictures of it. I also, because I've been around him for like 13 days, it was just too much of a coincidence for it to happen like consistently every day. I also noticed that in the food we would purchase, sometimes it would taste like it was like petrol, or it tasted very different to food that I've usually have, and it's just strange the kind of the chemicals that are in the air. I can't even describe it. And the one thing I have noticed about this area is that it seems to have a really high frequency, and which is something I haven't really picked up. I mean, I was watching television a couple of days ago, and I noticed that it was kind of intermittent, the experiencing of the buzzing in my ear, and I also noticed that my vision was getting slightly blurred. It's kind of been really strange. I mean, you know, when Chuka talks about it, it kind of must appear that he's just making this stuff up, but I've been with him for like 13 days, and I can see where he's coming from, and it's really difficult for him because he can't find any place to eat properly. He's constantly being gang stalked, and it's almost like they're provoking him to do something, and it's very, very, it's frightening, to be honest. Yeah, that's just shocking.
So you also see how this stuff might affect my ability to function in martial arts. It has a powerful psychological effect, like you study psychology in college, right?
Yeah.
And so this has a powerful psychological effect over a long time. This stuff started about 2011, if I remember correctly, and there have been things that they're referencing and behaviors when I think back in my life that do suggest that I've been targeted my whole life. And I will go as far as to say that it's because my dad is a brain surgeon and my mom is a doctor. They met in medical school in Detroit. There was race riots in Detroit, and basically from what I was told, if I remember correctly, he was assigned to California. And from there, my mom had problems in the area that I don't want to really get into. That caused them to move out to a rural area in Morgan Hill, which pretty much separates me from other people and limits my ability to network. So when you think about it, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Certainly that comes into play. One's ability to apply what they have going for them, their money, their social status, etc., is very much dependent on their environment, right? If you live in the Ozarks, you're not going to be networking with people in Beverly Hills, you know, so to speak, you know, for the most part, you know. So at the end of the day, you know, they have been going out of their way to confound me And I go as far as to say that they do believe that I'm the top martial artist. They believe that because of the connections I've pointed out that are thoroughly recorded. These things are published through Western publications. It has everything to do with tactics to keep black people down. One has to ask themselves, why did they go out of their way to take Africans from the other side of the world when there's a long history of slavery in Europe? They had Native Americans here. There was people from, islands in between. The Chinese that made the railroads, why didn't they bring them earlier and use them as slave labor? So certainly, no matter how you slice it, we see that the people, the elitists, have a chip on their shoulder when it comes to black people, when it comes to natural prowess, when it comes to spiritual and natural intelligence. They've redefined intelligence. The place we've been to, like Santana Row, the other places, San Francisco, etc. There's a lot of liberal guys who are passive, right, gender neutral. I'm sure the viewers know how liberals are. Basically, I'm not liberal or conservative. I believe in a monarchy, in a religious state. I don't think there's any other way to have a fair state than to elevate the most righteous person with a martial arts discipline to a position of power that allows him to rule in a way that is unhindered, and where obstacles in the way of getting true justice are minimized and all but eradicated, hopefully removed completely. So I don't believe in Western cultures. I think we live in a monocultural culture, I believe it's called. One culture dominates all. That is a Western secret society culture that includes a large degree of rich Jews and Asians. Okay, now I'm not racist. This is just how it works. Is it racist to point out that blacks, like 13% of America, own less than 1/2 of 1%, and that these other races are the people who exploit them? It wasn't black people who gave us communism. It was whites and Jews, Marx and Engels and so on, okay, who gave us communism as such. So to then say that I'm pointing out who the oppressors are is racist is quite stupid, wouldn't you say?
Yes, definitely.
So, and yes, this thing must be considered. And I don't think it's fair that women play stupid about this. We see them dating the very people that they complain, right? We see these liberals, these rich liberal yuppies, rewarding the same types of people that they claim to be part of the patriarchy, right? These are the guys. We all know it's a left-right paradigm. If you're to say that there's a patriarchy, how could you limit it to the right? The Ku Klux Klan, for example, used to be a part of the Democratic Party. You have to say that all rich people, right and left, are part of a patriarchy if you're making that argument. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
So then for them to date these people and to put a special emphasis on getting attractive women to date them is quite hypocritical. I go as far as to say that it goes back to the word teammate, right? Whose team are you on? You're mating with the rich people, and you're shunning the righteous. You got to think about it more in just terms of, oh, this guy is complaining because of this. Think of the sociological effect on society. What message do you send the kids? It's worse than the message the kids in the ghetto are receiving when they see drug dealers in a fancy car with the attractive women. White-collar criminals are far worse than the most violent, most offensive drug dealer in the ghetto. These people are mass murdering, mass drugging, designing a system where we have a coerced sex culture. There's no words for it. The richer you are in this system, the more you are accepted, right or left or otherwise, in this system, the more you are a criminal. This is a crony capitalist system. Kleptocrats, right? Plutocrats, the criminal class. The more the criminal class accepts you, the more you are a criminal. Any thoughts?
No, I just think that your viewers need to understand that it's not easy to live a life of isolation and persecution. It's one thing to just describe it to your viewers, but having come here and experienced it with you, it's just been really difficult.
Oh, yes, and then they talk about it's a war on terror. Right? What they're doing is basically terrorizing me. Okay? I remember when I was younger, someone said that a terrorist is somebody who lives in terror already, and they feel the need to terrorize the people who are terrorizing them. What do you think of this definition?
Yeah, I think that pretty much describes what you're going through. It's very difficult. I just hope that your viewers actually understand that your gang stalking is actually really extreme, and it is probably because you're the top martial artist and they're trying to weaken your skills and your ability to excel. Yeah, I just think it's ridiculous.
And you have witnessed me, you know, even with my reduced and drugging and so on, out of shape, right? I have shortness of breath from all the drugging. You see me do a few techniques in front of you. You know, it's one thing to see it on camera, right?
I mean, your speed is really fast. If one was to compare you to somebody like Bruce Lee or something, you can't really compare that, because with Bruce Lee, he was, you know, that could be edited. We don't know how realistic that is. Until you don't see somebody face to face or in their presence of their skills, you can't really make a judgment like that. But what I saw of you was really, I mean, considering you're drugged and you've lost a lot of weight, you're still really fast.
Yes, and this is a key component, right? How much more focus does it take to be fast and precise than to be strong and use brute force?
Yeah.
Let's also look at the wordplay here. When someone knocks someone unconscious, right, they talk about lights out. You ever heard that? Lights out.
Yes, you know? Yes, I have, yes.
And of course, how does that pertain to this? It's brute force, you know, and they're not trying to kill them, right? They're doing something satanic. They're causing them cognitive impairment, perhaps scarring their face, right? Their face is the temple. Horus means face, right? Hor means face, rather. And Horus, right, face us. Also the face of God, when somebody's doing the right thing, versus this kind of sniveling demonic face that we see portrayed all over. We see in the haunted houses, we see in Halloween, we see it in different cultures, you know, different kind of satanic music cultures, you know, heavy metal, rock and roll, Marilyn Manson, punk rock, and so on. When we look at the culture, it's a bunch of variations of Satanism, and they don't want people to see the natural glow of God in somebody, which is best expressed by a martial artist. When we see people talk about people who are hunks, right? I heard that word hunk. You know, he's somebody who works out, right? He's considered a knucklehead, a musclehead, right? A hunk at the beach. You ever seen the cartoon Johnny Bravo?
Yeah.
You know, in many ways, he's like a hunk that they're playing out as a weirdo that repels women. And the message is, if you're this big, strong guy, you know, you're not smart. And he's kind of handsome, right? And, you know, you're not smart. You repel women. And this we see time and time again. And when I look at, whenever I go to these yuppie places, you know, Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Sausalito, and even San Jose to some degree in some areas, you see a bunch of yuppie, weird geeks with attractive women, okay? And they do a lot of these places do a lot of walking, just like, you know, the Egyptian, his form was made from walking. So when women walk around, when women move to a place where there's nice food, clean air, and they're already pretty good in pretty good shape from college exercises, jogging and so on, and they start doing a lot of walking on those San Francisco hills, they become even more attractive and more sexy. And who are they going for? Or who are they going to? It goes back to the wordplay in The Lion. Let me put it over. The lion, right? Lay on and lie in. The lie is in the lion. The leopard is truly Leopold. He is the true spirit of God in the leopard of Ra, right? The lion was in Sekhmet because it has to do with body fat, okay? And you know, there's degrees of things, right? What is the opposite of a glutton? It isn't somebody who is skinny. Somebody who's skinny is displaying a different form of adversity to the true spirit of God. In nature, animals are fit, okay? The opposite of a glutton is somebody who is a martial artist in a kind of skinny African martial arts type of shape, okay? And we rarely see this in other groups of people. You think it's racist to say that, or that is just kind of what we see?
I just think that's your observation.
And when we look at this, so you look at Shaka Zulu, right, the BBC series, right? Mm-hmm. Where do we see anything like this? We don't see anything like this, right? You know, they don't portray warriors that well, that way. They portray warriors as big, strong, kind of oafs. They portray warriors as little martial artists, little Asian martial artists, right? And when we look at who the famous guys are, they're Van Damme, Scott Atkins, Jet Li, Jackie Chan. These were the famous guys. Okay, let me go to part 2.